Welcome everyone to another episode of Kiwi Talks. I'm honoured to be speaking to someone who is a huge part of my childhood, not to mention thousands of other Kiwis. She is a legend. She is the one and only Suzy Cato. How are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you, Reese. It's our time, kia ora, talofa. It's our time, a special time of day. Can't say hello without saying that or singing that.
That is so iconic.
Mm.
So iconic. Did you, when you first did that, when you were doing the You and Me program, did you record that separately in a studio and then you were just lip syncing it every time, or were you doing it live every single time?
Every single time. So we rehearsed the program, and I was using, we were in Dunedin, and this was the 90s. So we used to have the big, massive, big camera on a massive, big ped, and as smooth a floor as they could get. But as the ped would come around, with the camera operator gently pushing it, as I said, "Oh, hello, my friend. How are you today? Come and join me. Haere mai." Would launch into the song. If there was a little pebble, or or I stuffed up my words or whatever, we'd have to go back and do it again. So we'd record as live. We had a whole editing suite up, or a production suite up, and we were based in the Civic Theatre in Green Island, Dunedin. So it was a massive big theatre, and we had this huge stage area with my house set up in it, and the garden with the hydroponic plant garden set up outside and things like that. And we would welcome people in and record it as live. So if you made a mistake, we had to go back to the nearest edit point to do it from there. And invariably, it was the start of the program again.
Oh, wow. So how many takes would you roughly do?
I'm very proud to say that we often only did it in one take.
Well done, Suzy.
Yeah.
Being the professional you are.
Yeah, and having a massive auto cue in front of you with all the words and the lyrics for the songs and things like that. But we were learning up to 3 new songs a day as well as singing It's Our Time and See You Later. There was often, I'm a penguin, a penguin, I'm gonna wobble around. Or if we were talking about, just trying to think of a song off the top of my head that we sang, I'm a skittle standing on the floor, waiting for the ball, but I'm not sure if it will knock me over. You know, that sort of thing. The writer would write the script and then create a song or two to help reinforce the message. So you were learning the te reo, the words for the script, and the song, all within a very short space of time.
How short would that be, though? Would you have?
You get the script the night before.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, look, the songs were very, very simple, and you had all the lyrics there, and I'd stand beside the musician. Or sometimes if it was a little more challenging, you'd get the music earlier than that. But it was youth as well, I think. You had all the brain cells there, and you were able to pick things up really quickly and easily. So
yeah, well, that sort of thing is quite rushed, isn't it? You never take your time with any type of television production or film production. It always seems like it's
money, honey.
Yeah. Fast. So what about the bits where you'd kind of stop? So you'd be like, "How are you today?" And then there'd be a pause, and then you'd respond. Was that specifically timed? So you had to say it at specific points?
Whenever I asked a question, "Hello, my friend, how are you today?" You'd give them a chance to respond, knowing that some kids are either going to internalize it or be playing with their blocks and not joining in anyway. But because we had our writers, our directors, and eventually our producer were all kindergarten or preschool trained, we had the right language usage, we had the right conversation and the right topics and things like that. So you just used your own internal conversation and held the pause for as long as you felt was appropriate. Sometimes it wasn't enough. Sometimes it was too long. But generally I got it right.
How did you actually get the part there? How did that even happen?
Well, how did that happen? I had been involved in a program called The Early Bird Show with Russell Rooster. Mm-hmm. And that had started at the very beginning of TV3. And so it was the first children's program, and it was one of the first actual programs on TV3. And there was Russell Rooster, there was Auntie Kitty, who was a Kia, There were Dan, Spike, and Oz. They were ducks and they were the quack-ups, and they would tell jokes and be like a little interstitial. And the Early Bird Show was a linking program that linked all the cartoons on a Saturday or Sunday morning, linked them all together. And the story was that the birds were the first to get up in the morning, so they would take over the studio before any humans got there. And, oh, what's this button? Oh my goodness, yo, doodle doo, dudes, how you doing? Said Russell Rooster. And they were preparing to go on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle tour, and they needed somebody back at base. So they'd auditioned a young man, a boy, and it hadn't quite worked out. And I'd got talking to the executive producer a year prior and talked about what I had liked in children's television presenters when I was a child. And I got a telephone call when they started looking for somebody again, and they said, hey, ever thought of being on television? I went, yeah, I'm your Ginger Rogers. Where's my Fred Astaire? Completely wrong genre, the whole works, age group, the whole thing. But I got invited into the studio and we had a look around, got talking to people, had a read through of the script, and I became a chook assistant, Russell Rooster's chook assistant. So most prominent businessmen or business people have PAs. He had a CA, and I was there with my clipboard and helped him kind of bring the program to life and connect all the information, and we would ring kids and things like that. Then I ended up with my own show called 3 p.m., which was another linking program in the afternoon.
That's right.
We had Marty Mailbox and we had competitions, and the mailbox we would draw prize winners from. And we also had like an agony aunt kind of column where kids could write in with their issues and their problems. Well, a new commissioner came through, and about 9 of the children's television programs, there's so many on at that time, were axed. That we had Yahoo, Short Sports, oh gosh, there were so many. In Focus with Stephanie Tuivehu. There were, all of those programs got axed, but one that they had continued on was You and Me. Now, I'm not the original presenter of You and Me.
Yeah, it's just Pauline Cooper, isn't it?
Pauline Cooper, yeah. So I don't know if you ever saw the program with her on it, but she left to become a presenter with Parents as First Teachers, which was an educational organisation of Ministry of Education, I think. Right. And she left to take part in that, and they needed somebody. So they auditioned about 70 young Kiwis, and I had just started taking singing lessons, which was ironic because I didn't know I was going to get to audition for this. And it gave me the confidence to get down there and sing and give things a go. And I got the job. So, yeah, that was in 1993.
So when you first got into television, was it an easy transition for you? Were you easily able to kind of adapt to that world? Being in front of a camera and all that jazz?
I guess so, because I'm still there. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, you always seem like a natural whenever I saw you on television. So I'm just wondering if it was always like that from the get-go.
Well, if you look at some of my, excuse that noise. Don't know if you heard that, the coffee machine on the other side of the room. I guess what it was, I've been in radio for several years.
Yeah,
and when you're in radio, you are behind the microphone and you are envisaging the people that you're connecting with. So to transition through to the camera wasn't too dissimilar, because you're still imagining who you are talking to, except for instead of it being, a businessman or a mum out shopping or a family getting ready if you're doing the breakfast show type thing, you are envisaging a little person. Perhaps if it's in the early morning, the way You and Me was, 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning, they might be just getting out of their pajamas and they've got Marmite on their face and they've got crumbs everywhere and they're rubbing their little blurry eyes and things like that. So you're imagining that, and you're trying to get that child to smile. So it was fun and it was easy, and I don't know why or how, but it just was. So I feel very fortunate.
Yeah, yeah. And it seems like Suzy's World was the next
Mm.
easily transition from that.
Yeah, well, the funding came to an end for You and Me, and at that time, the New Zealand On Air basically approached me and said, "What would you like to do next?" And we got talking with the broadcaster, and because it had worked so well, I had such a good connection. I was out most weekends doing live shows, a lot of fundraisers for kindergartens and preschools and play centres and toy libraries and things like that. And I was around the country. I'd do a 25-minute live show and then a photo opportunity afterwards. And I was just connecting with so many people. It was amazing.
Wow.
And they said, "What would you like to do next?" And I wanted to carry on an educational vein because so many people said when I was heading to preschool with You and Me, "Isn't that a step backwards? Shouldn't you be going off and doing the weather or a game show or something like that?" But for me, having connected with the audience through the likes of 3 p.m. and the letters that we answered as part of our letterbox, with 3 letters about abuse and asking for assistance, I went, wow, there was something so much more to this medium than I had ever appreciated as a young 21-year-old who was like, whoa, being paid to have fun. So I really wanted to carry that on and be able to connect with some information and some value and some use for kids and families. And so encouraging kids to get involved in their environment, to look at the world around them, to question and to watch the program and then, wow, go outside and take a magnifying glass or, get some baking soda and some vinegar and make a mess. That kind of thing was just like a perfect transition for me.
Mm. Were you more hands-on with Suzy's World than You and Me in terms of the behind-the-scenes stuff?
Yeah, with You and Me, I would rock up, present, and then head away again. And I was in Dunedin for 2 weeks of every month for 5 years. So I'd fly down to our studio and have a little flat down there in Dunedin, and then come home and thaw out up in Auckland for 2 weeks, and then go back down and do that again. And I did that for 5 years. So with Suzy's World, I actually set up my own production company, and I was a writer and script editor to begin with, and then eventually took over more and more of the role. I always got directors in, but I became more the executive producer myself. Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, which was really.
I was going to say that sounds very time consuming if you were that heavily involved behind the scenes as well as being in front of camera as well.
Oh yeah, and an amazing learning curve to learn. You learn how to be a presenter on the job. I learned how to be a producer on the job as well. So it was incredibly time consuming, and we didn't even consider having a family at that stage.
I bet.
Because it was just too full on. But it just, when you surround yourself with such amazing people and such energy and such talent, the team, it can't help but be good because. And we also looked after them and made sure that, army marches on its stomach. So there was always a big kai at lunchtime, and we looked after our whānau really well. And it's been really exciting to see what those people have gone on to do after they've left Suzy's World. All the props designers and writers and editors and things like that. It's been really good. A lot of them have come straight from South Seas Film and Television School, so we were taking graduates and giving them their first job. But the enthusiasm and the energy and the can-do spirit is something that you really need in children's television in particular, because the budgets are generally so small, and the imagination of the kids, you can do so much with them and take them on these wild journeys via their imagination with only household items. So it was really exciting to be able to do that.
Yeah, but I was going to ask, it's like, because you've become so synonymous with educating children and children's television, like, do you sometimes feel pigeonholed as a result? Or, I mean, it seems like you've been able to do so many other amazing things, but do people still refer to you and think of you as the You and Me presenter, the Suzy's World presenter, or have you managed to kind of avoid being typecast?
I don't know. I guess that depends from person to person. And the fact that I have done things like Dancing with the Stars,
Yeah.
and I'm now a contributing writer for Woman magazine. But
I didn't know that.
it's
Wow.
yeah, Woman magazine came about after lockdown, after the second lockdown. It was the first magazine came out in October. So I write an article with them. It's a parenting column. So I guess it's been me as much as anybody else that's kind of pigeonholed me. And I've been really happy in that little niche because it's something that I enjoy. I really love communicating via whether it be Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or whatever. I love connecting. And I guess I am best known for reading stories, singing songs, that kind of thing, performing for kids. It's where I've been really, really happy. But it's also been good to actually branch out, be behind the scenes. After Suzy's World, I had created with Constable Brian Ward a program called Brian and Bobby, which, do you remember Constable Keith and Sniff years ago on What Now?
Yes.
Sniff had a really gruff voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So got talking to Brian at a kids event. It was out at Middlemore Hospital, a Christmas event for their Children's Kids First Hospital. And we just went, wow, wouldn't it be great to connect with kids and give them really good community safety messages? There's never been anything after sniff. And he was really keen on the idea. It was his idea, basically. And I said to him, well, look, you go and get yourself a little sock toy or something like that and have a go and take it into the classrooms and see how it works. Well, he went that much better and got funding from local Rotary and had the prototype for Bobby made, which he then took through classrooms. And it was so successful that we put a proposal into TV3 and secured funding ourselves and made 3 series of Brian and Bobby, which is now a resource kit used in country and schools throughout the country, and still is all these years later. So I then formed a children's radio show because I was a announcer on Big FM here in Auckland for a short space of time while the station was on air. And I thought, the programming's great. The music's fantastic. It is missing a children's program, though. So we created that with New Zealand On Air funding. And 14 series later, about 14 years later, we are still on air on 26 radio stations around the country.
Wow.
So a lot of the little access stations or regional stations, which are so community focused and orientated. In Hamilton, we're on Free FM.
Yep.
So, so Saturday or Sunday mornings, majority New Zealand content, which we've grown from like 50-50 to almost 80% New Zealand content with all the singer-songwriters with Kiwi Kids Music. And all the kids' voices that we're using, the book reviews, the jokes, the stories, all those sorts of things. And you've got to have the gold classic story in there. So just recently we had Little Toot. We have a Flick the Fire Engine and, all those sorts of things. So, yeah, great. Something for kids of all ages, basically.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you've done everything then. What haven't you done?
There's still a few more things. Otherwise, I will have to kick that bucket. No, I have to grow the bucket and make it into a barrel list instead.
Yeah. So with a lot of these gigs, do you approach them or do you get approached? Like, say, with Dancing with the Stars.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did that happen?
I got a telephone call and I went, oh, really? And it said yes, really, before I actually gave it much consideration because I'd watched it previously and it looked like so much fun. It was also such a challenge, physically, mentally, emotionally. And as I said many times during Dancing with the Stars, I hadn't even walked prior. So when I got the telephone call and they said, would you be interested? I went, okay, and donned my walking shoes and shorts and started walking just so I could have some fitness to start dancing because I was doing dance training, 6 or 7 hours a day.
Wow.
Once it started. Yeah. So not as much as some of the others were doing, but I also had the commitments of the radio show, 2 kids, various other projects that I had on the go. I helped found an organisation called Kiwi Kids Music. We've got over 100 singer-songwriters who are a part of the association now. And it's an organisation of singer-songwriters who live in New Zealand who write music for kids, because the New Zealand music industry was the greatest kept secret for many, many years. And the children's music industry was definitely so. But, we've grown it exponentially, and the songwriters are doing so well internationally as well as here in New Zealand. So I was chair for about 6 years. I resigned last year after home learning TV and the busyness of lockdown. Oh my goodness. We were all preparing for lockdown, and I was buying face packs and crafts for the house, things like that we were going to do, paint pots and, start redecorating and all the things we wanted to do in the 6 weeks. But I had also reached out to the Ministry of Education to say, hey, there are all these episodes of Suzy's World. Would you like those to be a part of whatever you're planning to do for kids? And they said, oh, would you like to actually assist and make some more content? Yeah, I'd love to. So that put paid to all the ideas of home decorating and stuff like that. In fact, we're still mopping up the mess of 6 weeks of intense filming. My husband had to learn how to set up the lights, and we'd just bought a couple of little cameras, so we had to learn how to do those, use those. Editing outside of the house became too difficult, so I then said to him, oh, sweetheart, you know how you're doing all this? Can you now add editing to your list? So he had to download a program and learn how to do that. So the hours were long. We were up at 6:30. We were off to bed at midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. One morning it was 4 o'clock in the morning. We missed the deadline of delivery for the next day. But loads of challenges in that we didn't have the highest spec equipment. So rendering any of the content that we'd filmed or uploading it just took so much longer. And if you had a fail, a little technical glitch or something like that, you had to restart it. So things which now I'd only take like a matter of 45 minutes or 4 minutes or something like that to upload would have taken about 4 hours. So yeah, there was such an intense learning curve, and so much work came out of home learning TV that we're still on this crazy dance now. And I'm doing so much more public speaking, and have been the narrator for the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra for their series, school series with Peter and the Wolf. All things that in my 30 years of being in television had never experienced before. So I'm constantly finding, by shoulder tapping, people contacting me saying, hey, do you want to be a part of this? I'm getting so many opportunities. But I'm also seeking opportunities myself. So the likes of Kiwi Kids Music, I hadn't been the chair of anything before, but because I'd started the ball rolling, I learned so much about being on a board and setting up a trust and things like that by just doing it. And when you don't know what you're getting yourself into, it's really easy to say, yeah, I'll do that.
So you don't really investigate too much before you agree to do something. You just do it and then work it out later?
Yeah, well, it's a gut feeling, I guess. And then, yeah, I guess with the likes of Dancing with the Stars, you have an appreciation. I didn't speak to anybody prior. I didn't find out the pitfalls of it because I wanted to share that journey. And that's why I didn't do any dance lessons, other than I asked my nephew, who is a dance teacher, whether he would take me for a couple of rounds around the dance floor to make sure that I didn't stand on his toes too many times, and that I could actually remember the dance moves, so that I could really give it half a chance. But I only had a couple of lessons with him, whereas perhaps some other people took more serious dance lessons before they put their hand up for it. But I thought, you know what, if I'm doing this as the average Kiwi doing it, and I will take them on the journey with me as far as we go. And I think I got to week 7, which was pretty jolly good.
Yeah. Because I would imagine you'd have a pretty good muscle memory from all the years of what you're doing. So when you were learning these dance routines, was it hard for you to remember the routine, or did you get it down quick?
Oh, so some of them got them down really quick, particularly if they were partner dancing, because then my partner could then say, left, no, other left, as we careered around the floor. And the subtle movements with the hand pressure on the back or the on the palm of the hand of where we were going to next. I was like, oh yeah. And those first couple of dances, you had weeks to actually practice them. But the further you got into the competition, you came off the dance floor, you were given your new piece of music, and you started learning. And hats off to all the professional dancers with their celebs who had to start from scratch and work with the limitations of their celebrity. So I wasn't brave enough for any of the lifts or anything like that, which some of the other celebs were. So the even in the opening title scene, somebody was being thrown over somebody else's shoulders, and I went, oh, don't do that to me. I'm afraid of heights. Don't drop me. So I didn't actually get to do any of those lifts. So he had to work out what we could do that would be try and achieve the same kind of wow factor that a lift and a throw over the shoulder might do. So, he was quite challenged, that chap. He was amazing.
I bet he was. Are you quite a competitive person? Was there a competitive aspect of it when you were on the show?
You have to be competitive. Yeah, you have to be competitive, but I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily competitive. If I get told I can't do something and I really want to, then I will knuckle down and give it a jolly good go. But I don't look for competition normally. So, but you did have to be. You did want to succeed, and you did. And I loved the hair and the makeup and the dresses and the actual sense of whānau that we had. We were all pretty much within the same one dance studio. So as one hobbled out with blisters all over their heels or whatever from their dancing shoes, we were all passing each other the liniment or the sticking plasters or, hey, I've got a spare apple or, have a lolly type thing. Whereas in previous years, I understand that there was a little more competitive, that people weren't as close. But we had such a great environment. It was so much fun.
Yeah, it looked like fun. I mean, most of the people I see on that show look like they're having fun, which is the main thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Apart from the sprained ribs and sprained ankles, all that.
Oh, well, there's always injuries, isn't there?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's all part of it.
Oh, yeah, of course. So in the face of technology and the way it's changed from the 90s to now, and how, we have the internet and there's all this social media, as a presenter, you probably care a lot about what children are exposed to, right? You want to make sure that, they're protected. And with the age that we're in, and as a parent yourself, how do you navigate this stuff? I mean, I've often asked a few people, I'm like, as a parent, like, when would you let your kid have a phone? When would you let your kid be on social media? And I mean, you can get so many different responses. But as someone who's in the industry and knows quite a bit about it, like, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Well, I do know a bit about it, but it's constantly changing. So you're having to remain on top of things as best you can. For us, the kids didn't get a phone until they were taking a public school bus or public bus down to school. And that gave them a sense of security. It gave us a sense of security as well. And because by then I had started a great number of projects that I and my husband weren't necessarily going to be able to do all the pickups and drop-offs and things like that. But we limited what apps they could download and what groups that they could chat on and things like that. As they get older, I've got a child now in year 12 and year 9. So my youngest is now year 9. They need to be able to be responsible for their own actions. So we certainly monitored what was going on the computer and the phones and things like that when they were much younger. When they were utilizing the computer at home for homework, it was on the dining room table. It was in a place in the lounge where we could see, and we talked about how they could protect themselves. One of the trickiest things with YouTube, say, is all the opportunities, all the potential links that will recommended viewing down the side. Look, I don't know how they work out the algorithms, and it would be wonderful if there was a sense of age and that those kids would be protected more easily. And you can do that with kids content, YouTube Kids. That is well catered for. But you can just click on anything. How many times have you gone, recommended viewing, click on that, which looks really innocuous and fine, totally. And then bang, you end up seeing something that you can't unsee. So, but I had that when I was researching for Suzy's World. We did a program on tickling. Can you tickle yourself? And we did a program on sneezing, and I was the writer for that. And you searched up sneezing, and bing, 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 all these fetish sites popped up. I had no idea of anything like that. I was like, what? And it was quite unfortunate because we had Suzy's World, and my website was suzy.co.nz, which I'd already had for a number of years. We had a whole lot of kids searching for Suzy's World, which happened to be the site of an enterprising young woman overseas who had a whip and high-heeled boots and fishnet stockings and things like that. So I had a whole lot of parents saying, oh, can you change the website? I said, but we contacted them, but it would have cost vast amounts of money and things like that. And there was something beyond our scope of being able to change. That site's no longer there, thank goodness. But I don't know what you get when you search that now. But even back then when the internet was really just in its infancy, there was still so much to navigate for kids. So as far as recommendations go, it is about talking to your kids constantly, keeping that line of communication open so that when they do see something or come across something that they perhaps would rather they hadn't seen, then they talk to you about it and they can start to process it. It's the same with watching things on TV though. Kids programming, and then you've got, well, this is with traditional terrestrial content, you've got the promos for the late night horrors or the all those sorts of things coming through in children's programming. And it's just unfortunate the way that has been programmed that sort of thing happens. But making sure that you talk with your children, and not just talking, it's actually listening. So listen to your child, and sometimes it's even the subtle things that they're not telling you will give you a bit of a clue to how they might need to process things a little bit more.
Because I was thinking, like, even with Disney, because they've got Disney Plus, the streaming app, and they've just added a new section called, I think it's called Star, and you have access to all these M-rated and R18 films that are on the same app now as, all the Disney stuff. And it's like, okay, well, this is another thing to worry about if you're a parent, because you have to make sure that they don't get into any of that stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's just never ending, is it?
Yeah. Netguard, not Netguard, what's the the internet safety we've got here in New Zealand? It's on the top of my tongue. Netsafe. They have a fantastic website with a whole lot of points and tips for how to safeguard your computer and your smart TV and things like that from, so that you can put basically kiddie locks on things. So that would be worthwhile going and checking out. But again, it's communicating with your kids, explaining why why the content's not that they're not ready for that content yet, basically. And for my two, that worked. They weren't big on scary movies and that sort of thing. So, hey, we won't watch this. We will save this when we can all watch it together, or when you're ready. And so that worked for us, but it's not going to work for every child, unfortunately. Some of them are a little bit more curious and a little bit more adventurous. So do investigate the kiddie locks for your internet, and just supervise the kids a lot more. Be aware of the chat rooms that they're going into as well. There are some that are just a little bit more dangerous than others.
Yeah.
And
what about
without listing them?
Yeah. Well, what about when they're teenagers, right? Because I remember when I was a teenager at school and I got bullied a lot. And this was prior to the whole phone thing, prior to social media. And I kind of feel that's probably made it worse, because there's the expectation now, if my friends have a phone or they're on Facebook, then I need to be on Facebook. And then obviously people can, what is it, text bullying or cyberbullying?
Oh, yeah, cyberbullying, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is so difficult because it's unseen. It's not like it's being yelled across the playground. It's there in your hand, and it's in your most intimate spaces, your bedroom, your, you've got this jolly screen only inches away from your face, and it can be so intense. So I guess it's about future-proofing your child by helping them be as confident and letting them know how loved they are. It doesn't matter what mistakes they make, what they do, you will always love them. You might not like their behavior, and you can work with them on that, but it's about them always knowing that you love them and that you will support them unconditionally. And again, talking with them all the time. What's going on? What's happening? As they're teens, they are a little bit more protective of their phone. For a number of years, we were able to have the same password and actually check in every now and then and make sure that, the conversations were all as they should be. But we are very fortunate with our two that we have great communication with them. And it's often as we are going in to say goodnight to them and our eyes are starting to droop ourselves that we hear, "Mum, can we talk?" And you go, "Okay, yep, okay." You brace yourself for, and it might not be what's going on in their life, but it could be what's happening in the playground that they've seen that they don't enjoy, or something that they've. Look, Instagram is really good for, not Instagram, TikTok is really good for connecting kids with a whole lot of information. Again, a lot of it's fine, but it can bring about conversations that you haven't actually already instigated with your child. So if you can, try and be in the same platforms as your child just to get a sense of what it is that they're doing. Follow the similar, and that's if they'll allow you when they're teens. Follow the same kinds of people that they're getting their information from. But and just keep talking around the dinner table, in the car, anywhere you can. Go for walks, spend time with your kids, and just get to know them more. We're connecting a lot at the moment with Connect 4 while watching TV and having a chat that way. But I know of other folks that go and have a spa after dinner. We don't have that luxury, but they've found that that's been a great way to connect with the kids. Or when you're drive them off to an event or sports or something like that, is just check in with them that way. Sometimes a carload of kids are the best way to find out what's going on too, because they kind of forget that you're in the car. You're like some Uber driver or taxi driver. All this conversation goes on around you. You can just quietly sit there and listen.
Yeah, take it all in. Because how do you stay on top of all the trends and everything? Because I'm finding as I get older, I don't understand a lot of the stuff that the younger people are into. And so I'm trying to stay on top of what's going on, what's the new trend. And, I've heard as you get older, you get more stuck in your ways. And everything you look at that's new, you're kind of like, I mean, I don't know if that's fully true, but that was just something that I heard.
Yeah, well, as an older person, that I can say yes, because some of this newfangled music, oh my goodness, that's not music.
Well, I say that. I say that now too. I'm like, oh, what's this music? This isn't real music.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like what my dad used to say to me,
Yes. You hear yourself. Oh, that was my mum. Oh my goodness. Well, the thing is, when you've got kids, they help you stay on top because they're using the language. They're, "Hey, mum, check this out," and they're showing you something on their phone. Okay, well, now I've got a TikTok account and I've got 2 dances that I started doing in the first lockdown. I haven't got back there since, but but yeah, it is about, I guess, if you're on social media, you are finding out those sorts of things anyway. And I have to do that for work. I don't know that I'd necessarily be on the platforms if I didn't have to do it for work, but it's part of being a television presenter and connecting. So it's also a part of the requirement from New Zealand On Air that I need to be multi-platformed presenter so that I can report on it each quarter as I get my next funding round. So, yeah.
Oh, is that how it works? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I started my YouTube channel was as part of the reporting system, I needed to be multi-platformed, and podcast would be a normal transition for radio. And I went, well, we could put up podcasts for the kids, or we could start a YouTube channel. So I'd already started putting up a bit of Suzy's World, a few episodes of Suzy's World, and there was an episode or two of You and Me up there as well. But I started creating content and getting kids to come in and do the art and crafts and things like that with me. And just recently I've started a story reading because during lockdown, that was so much fun. We were sitting around the table that first Friday night, said to the kids, we can't get takeaways. This is a bit different. Think of all those people that are normally heading out for an evening. They can't go anywhere. Wonder if they need a bedtime story. And they said, yeah, go for it, Mum, go for it. So we set it up in this corner here. And I read Johnny Danger by local author Peter Millett. And it's a kid's book. And I had kids tuning in, but I set it for 10 o'clock at night. So all those older kids who would normally be out, and I had people in their 30s or 40s tuning in as well, just to hear a voice that they recognized, reading them a story and doing something different for them. So how did I get to that? What question did you ask me?
It's all right. It's a good segue. So we were talking about social media, and then you were talking about TVNZ, like the funding and needing the analytics, I suppose, for the different social media accounts. And then you segued to YouTube, which then segued to obviously you doing your book.
Yeah, which it was all on social media. Facebook, I had two phones going, Facebook and Instagram, and I tried to do both just to connect with the audience, which it was quite well received. I just ran out of time. So, I'll have to come back to that.
So sorry, I was going to just ask, does TVNZ, is it TVNZ or NZ on funding?
New Zealand on Air.
Yeah, New Zealand on Air. What am I on about? New Zealand on Air's funding. Do they look at the analytics and you look at the analytics together, or do you do it separately? Do you look at the analytics at all?
I look at the analytics and I send reports to them, grabbing out the information that they require. So I should perhaps work with the analytics a little more, but that's the boring part. I'd rather make the content and
yeah. Well, I mean, because I look at mine and it's fascinating looking at some of the stats, the statistics, because the audience, the demographic will be very different from, say, YouTube to, say, TikTok, right? I mean, TikTok is skewed to more of a younger audience. I think Instagram is a bit older, and then YouTube's all over the place. I mean, some of the people that watch my videos on YouTube are from Russia and India, and I'm like, how's this happen? It's weird.
So they're listening to podcasts elsewhere, and then you pop up in that recommended viewing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's weird how the algorithm works for different social media platforms. There's a whole art to the marketing of it, eh?
Yeah, well, I'm actually tempted to do a little course. I believe there's one coming up that's like a 10-weeker where you can kind of pressure cook, which is something I should have done years ago, but it's finding time. Finding the time to do all these things, which is when you have a big production company, you're employing those people to do those sorts of things for you. I've pretty much been a one-person band, and I've roped my husband in from time to time whenever I can to say, hey, can you do this for me? Which, I've been very grateful for.
Do you ever get time to stop and smell the roses, so to speak, though? Because it sounds like you're just always going. I mean, obviously, you probably, well, even during lockdown, I suppose you were still going.
Yeah, so I've enjoyed the little mini lockdown this year that Auckland's had, because I wasn't making home learning TV or anything like that. But yeah, it's really important for me to be able to spend some time with the kids. So every meal we're together that we can, and instead of having them head off on the bus and things like that, I am picking them up from school or running them here, there, and everywhere. My daughter got a summer job and up in Albany, so either myself or my husband drove her, because that's a good 20 minutes drive where you can just actually sit and chat. It does put pressure on you for your own work. You've got to try and cram it all in. But for us, it's only a number of years before she's leaving the nest, so we're making the most of every moment that we can. And likewise with our son. Yeah, so we actually homeschooled him And I think lockdown has given me more of an appreciation for making that time instead of, oh, there's always next weekend, there's always. Now I'm looking at my schedule going, oh, I'm not actually working this weekend. Do I set up the studio for doing something for YouTube, or do I actually go, no, guys, let's go for a bike ride or something like that? And I know a lot of other people are now starting to do that a little bit more too. It's they enjoyed that with their family or themselves if they didn't have family during lockdown, to have the time to walk, to go on some, walk along the beach and all those sorts of things. That they're making more time for that now than ever before, which is so good. Of course, there are others who, I mean, all of last year and the first part of this year, it was like catching up with the work that I had postponed with home learning TV. And then I've had so many fantastic opportunities that I've crammed it all in. But now that it's just naturally, the calendar is just naturally a little lighter, I'm not looking for as many opportunities as I was before. I'm going, yay, let's make the most of this.
If there's one good thing I'll say that's come out of COVID, it's the ability, I think, that of people being able to work remotely, because it allows people more time. I mean, I know from living in Auckland that traffic just makes commuting very difficult, right? And it just, has it gotten better since the lockdowns? Is there more people working from home? Okay, it's still terrible. Okay.
Look, surprisingly today, Friday, I don't know whether people are going, oh no, we're working from home Friday. This morning, the traffic was fantastic. But 2 days ago, it was a nightmare. You think first thing in the morning, why? It's not like there's racing in the afternoon shouldn't affect the morning traffic. Maybe it did, I don't know. The weather was fine. You kind of take all that into consideration. But some people are working from home, more and more of us are. But Reese, there's also a downside to that, because instead of the car ride where they listen to the radio or a podcast or chatting to somebody in the car, they're starting to work straight away. And because they've got interruptions like the washing or kids at home during lockdown, they were working longer hours. So they were using the commute time to work, working more longer hours. Invariably, if you are in the office and you get up to go to the toilet, people can see you're not at your desk, but invariably you're at home, you go to the toilet, somebody's going to ring. And I've got a friend who's working with companies for their staff's well-being, and she did that all through lockdown, all through the various lockdowns, and not just here in New Zealand, but also around the world. And working from home has had its benefits for about 80% of the people, but for the others, or maybe 80, 85, but for others, it has impacted on them greatly, because if they're living at home by themselves, that work, whether it was the commute in the bus, being a part of faces that you recognize on the bus heading off to work, or whether it's the people around you at work or that coffee shop that you're going to share a smile with, that's that human connection that so many people are missing out on, particularly those not so much here in New Zealand anymore, but those overseas who are still in lockdown and are missing that human connection. It's
a valid
pretty
point.
daunting.
And you don't want to always be your work and personal space to both be in the same place, because then it's harder to differentiate then as well, right? Yeah.
Several friends of mine who had worked in business environments would put on their suit, particularly on a Monday morning, to get them in the mind frame, even though they were just going to their dining table, or they'd set up a table of sorts in the garage just so that they could leave the house, close the door, and be in a completely different environment. But just even changing your clothes can make a big difference. Getting out of your pajamas and brushing your hair and your teeth and things like that makes a big difference in getting outside into the garden, getting out for a walk, whatever. So important.
So are you able to separate the two? So say, obviously, you're in your little book corner there. That's in your house, right?
Yeah.
But are you able to separate the two, especially during lockdown? Were you able to? Sorry.
Well, I've worked from home since the kids. Well, I've always worked from home. I haven't had a production studio outside of since You and Me's finished. We've pretty much had a home office and worked. So I've been doing that for 20 years, long time. So it's just natural for me. So when the kids were upstairs as babies, asleep in their bassinet, I was down here working, nipping upstairs to check on them, all those sorts of things. And then I found as they were older, 6 o'clock bedtime, we'd had dinner with them, we'd bath and had fun, we'd read stories, they'd gone to bed, straight downstairs to carry on working. And that has become part of my life. So I guess I do separate it, definitely. You just get used to it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For some reason, I always thought your Tree Hut production company was you'd have an office somewhere else. But it's actually it makes it better, I suppose, for you.
Yeah, sure. While we were making Suzy's World, we had a studio set, and it was set up in the likes of South Seas Film and Television School, and they've still got some of the set elements. They've still got the purple corrugated wall and things like that. I don't know if you remember. You'll have to Google that one now. Go and have a look on my YouTube.
Will do.
Yeah. And yeah, they still have elements of that. And we did have an office set up there, but I also had the office at home. And it was more Brian and Bobby actually that I had the office at home. Suzy's World, we did end up. No, the first series of Suzy's World we had out of this rumpus room actually. My husband had staff here and I had staff here, and it's the size of a handkerchief. It was really close, but when you've got a budget that's only tiny anyway, it's a pocket handkerchief, and you're working with Monopoly money, it was how you deal with things. So
Monopoly money. Yeah. So what's on the horizon in terms of future projects for you?
Well, last year during lockdown, I released 2 books. I spotted one before. So I've got Te Whānau Kāori and the Kāori Family, which is released with Scholastic and New Zealand, and has a song with it. What's that big? Can you see? I wonder what that thing can be. Or Hea hatou e ki tēnā, hea ha tērā me no ora. So that's the te reo version. I released a book with Itty Bitty Beats just before Christmas called Christmas in Summer. And I have another book coming out with Scholastic later this year. And I have coordinated the New Zealand Children's Music Awards for the last few years for APRA New Zealand and Recorded Music New Zealand, and have built a kids event around it. So we're not heading into lockdown at the moment, so that's a go ahead. Exactly. So we're currently building that, and there's a few other little projects on the go, which maybe I can come back and talk to you about them then. But at the moment, there's nothing that I can share that because it's not set in concrete yet. But yeah, there are a few things on the go which are for both children and families, and then some others that are more aligned with the older audience, which is quite exciting as well.
That's cool. Okay, so you have got a lot on. When you're writing these books, how long do they take? And
see, something like this was the song first.
Oh, you wrote the song first, and then
I wrote the song. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it's a song that I wrote with Arthur Basting, who unfortunately passed away before the book was released.
Oh.
But he has been a singer-songwriter or a songwriter for many, many years. And this song in particular was based on a song that had come out of Australia called The Gumtree Family, with an amazing preschool presenter and personality in her own right. She had released it with them. Arthur's writing partner, Peter Dacent, is another amazing Kiwi who's now based in Australia and has been for many years. And they've been writing together for years. So we just adapted the song and made it with a Kiwi focus on the Kāori tree instead of the Australian gum tree. And I've written an album's worth of songs that I've yet to release with Arthur and Peter, but also the song Sprinkle a Little Sunshine with Kath B, which the music video's got over 90,000 views on it and things like that, and it's sung through schools throughout the country and so on. Very different to writing a song and creating it into a book than it is to all those years ago creating a book series So there's Suzy the farmer, Suzy the doctor, Suzy the scuba diver, Suzy the police officer. And I had ABCs and 1, 2, 3s and things like that. Very different. But what I did with these stories, which was so cool, was the first page is Suzy playing with her toys. So I don't know if you can see that there.
Yeah,
She's but that's the farm animals. And then the bottom drops out of the box and she needs to find a farmer to help corral all the animals. So she puts on things from her wardrobe, her gumboots and her hat, and then is transformed into a world of imagination where she becomes the farmer. And there she is, she's off sorting out the animals. And at the back of the book, in the last page, she is back in her bedroom, tidying up and putting things away. The same with Suzy the doctor or Suzy the scuba diver. It always starts in her house with Suzy the doctor. Ty falls out of bed, he's got a headache and he's not feeling well. So she finds things, her dressing gown and so on, become the doctor's uniform, and she becomes the doctor and looks after the kids. And it's all about imagination, imaginative play. So the beds, the hospital beds that the patients are in, are actually old shoe boxes. I don't know if you can see that there. They're lined along the floor. They're shoe boxes. That is imaginative play that I used to do when I was a kid. So I had my dressing gown and I was given a toy stethoscope, and I used to make beds for all the toys out of shoe boxes. So this is my story to a certain extent. And I did this with Random House many, many years ago. But the whole idea with this was to have a bedtime story for the kids, but to get them involved in imaginative play. And then at the back of each book, we had activities that people could, cut out or turn boxes into masks or into a car or, that kind of thing. I love the one with the scuba diver. That was a couple of old Coke bottles that we suggested that you strap onto your back, or, big cardboard tubing and create a scuba diving pack and stuff like that.
So do you have like a vault of ideas that just kind of sit there ready for when you need to take them out?
Yep, definitely. Because both my husband and I are great ideas people. So there's every now and then I flick through things and I go, oh, wow. And things might have morphed. So ideas that I had prior to Suzy's World that I've looked back on and gone, oh, wow, that kind of morphed and became part of that without my actually realizing it. Or like the songbooks and the ideas that I've got coming up. Or I released getting kids to play games. I've released sets of elastics on my shop page and knuckle bones. And just before, or in lockdown, or just before Christmas, actually, they really took off. Hilary Barry had done a little video on jumping in elastics, promoting a young child's elastics. She was selling homemade elastics. And they typed Elastics New Zealand and up popped my shop. And I sold thousands of the jolly things before Christmas. And it wasn't until we looked back during the holiday break that I went, oh, wow, I actually had the idea to do that back in You and Me days. But it's something that got put on the back burner. I never got round to doing because it wasn't the quite right age group either. That you go, oh, wow. And it's kind of come about through my radio show and going, I want some prizes that I can send out to kids that are, and I started making them on my own sewing machine. And then I put them on my shop because people said, oh, where can we get these? And so I put them on my shop and I was making a few every weekend. And then it got to the stage where it was building, and schools have ordered 10 or 20 of them at a time. And we had to outsource our production. But you look back and you go, oh, wow, that was a gem of an idea that I had 20 years ago. And it's morphed into this. So, yeah, it's interesting to see what's in the vault and what I can now do with it. Yeah. But you've got to find the time and the energy to do it.
I agree. But you seem to be very good at it. You've been doing it for a long time, so...
Oh, yes, I have.
Yes, second nature it is.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Well, hey, I'll wrap up there. This has been so amazing, Suzy. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thanks for the opportunity. It's been lovely to chat.
Yeah. So you're on pretty much every social media channel.
Yep, pretty much.
Yep, you're on TikTok. I didn't know you're on TikTok, so I'll follow you.
Oh, well, I'll have to do a new dance then.
No pressure.
Only if you do one too.
Oh, I can do one. Yeah, it'll look terrible.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. One of my podcasts
that's
just
all part of it.
went viral recently on TikTok. So.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. It's weird how that works. TikTok is a weird phenomenon. Very much so. Cool. All right. Well, that's the show, everyone. Make sure you share, like, and subscribe. Support Suzy. If you have a child, get them a book from Suzy.
Or even if you just want a blast from the past, Auntie Suzy's always there.
Yeah. On YouTube, you can find You and Me and Suzy's World. It's all there if you want that nostalgia.
Yeah, or tune in to hear my voice on a Saturday or Sunday morning on one of the radio shows. So go to suzy.co.nz and you'll find a link to everything there.
Okay, great, cool,
awesome.
All right,
thank you, Reese.
No worries. All right, stay safe, everyone. Until next time.
See you later. It's time to say goodbye.
See you later. I've really got to fly.
All right. Nice one. Love it. Yay.
Yeah. Okay. See you later, everyone. Cool. Thanks, Suzy.